Okay, let's dive right in. What if I told you that the Quran, a text revealed piece by piece over 2 decades, might actually have a hidden mathematical structure, a deliberate, almost secret design woven right into its fabric? That's the incredible idea we're going to explore in this explainer.
You see, the people who study this don't see the Quran as just a collection of verses. Not at all. To them, it's more like a perfectly interlocking mosaic, where every single piece, every chapter, every verse is essential for the final grand picture. The whole thing suggests this deep, underlying unity that's just begging to be looked at.
And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, think about it. The revelations came down over 23 years, often in direct response to specific events happening on the ground. So how on earth could they all fit together into some kind of pre-designed mathematical and thematic structure? It seems impossible.
Well, it turns out this exact puzzle is the entire focus of a special discipline within Islamic studies. It's a field called munasaba, and it's all about uncovering these hidden connections.
So what is munasaba exactly? In simple terms, it treats the Quran like a single, giant, self-explaining tapestry. Instead of looking at each part in isolation, it searches for what you might call the load-bearing beams, the numerical patterns and thematic links that tie the entire text together into one single, coherent whole.
All right, so let's get into some of the evidence that proponents of this theory point to. This is one of the big ones. They call it the 237 Quranic hologram, and it shows up right at the very beginning of the story of the Revelations.
Okay, so what in the world is this hologram? Well, it all starts with a surprisingly simple bit of math, based on the chronological order of the very first chapters revealed. Let's break it down. The calculation itself is, well, it's pretty straightforward. Proponents point to the chapter numbers of the first 3 revelations in the order they happened historically: chapter 96, then chapter 68, then chapter 73. You add those 3 numbers up, and you get exactly 237.
But here's the thing. For believers in Munasaba, 237 isn't just a number. They call it a hologram because they believe it contains way more information packed inside it. For instance, if you take the digits 2, 3, and 7 and multiply them, you get 42. That's exactly half the number of chapters revealed in Mecca. Thematically, they argue it fuses the core concepts of revelation, scripture, and worship all into one numerical signature.
Now, this idea of a numerical signature, that's really just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. Proponents believe these patterns aren't just random Easter eggs. No, they think they're part of a grander structure, a kind of metaphysical theory of everything that's been encoded into the Quran itself.
And right at the heart of this huge claim is another equation. It's incredibly simple, but also really profound. Get this. The chapter number of Surah Al-Hijr, which is chapter 15, plus the number of verses in that very same chapter, which is 99, equals 114. And 114 is the total number of chapters in the entire Quran.
And of course, these aren't just numbers. Each one has a deep symbolic meaning. Chapter 15 is seen as the vessel. The 99 is linked to the 99 divine attributes of God, which serves as the foundation. And 114 represents the complete manifestation, the entire book. Put them all together, and you get what some call a perfect closed system.
Now, you've probably heard that phrase, theory of everything, before, right? It comes from science. In physics, a TOE is like the holy grail. It's a single, hypothetical theory that could explain the entire universe, from gravity all the way down to tiny quantum mechanics.
But here's the crucial difference. A scientific TOE is all about the how. How does the universe work? It's mechanistic. The proposed Quranic TOE, on the other hand, is metaphysical. It's trying to explain why the universe exists in the first place. It's asking these huge questions about purpose, morality, and ultimate reality. But this all brings us to a really critical question. I mean, how do we know these patterns aren't just fascinating coincidences? And to its credit, the field of munasaba takes this challenge very seriously, even to the point of stress testing its own ideas.
So, yeah, let's put on our skeptical hats for a minute. Is it possible that a really eager mind could just find patterns where none were ever intended? This is the core of the whole debate, and it's a fair question to ask.
Okay, so here is probably the theory's biggest vulnerability. That whole 237 calculation, it completely depends on the historical consensus that Surah 73 was the third revelation. But there is a minority scholarly view that it was actually Surah 74. If you make that one tiny change, swap a 73 for a 74, the sum becomes 238, and the entire 237 lattice just falls apart.
And there's another pretty big challenge to the theory's uniqueness. How special is that 237 sum from the first revelations? Well, it turns out there are 24 other combinations of 3-chapter numbers that also add up to 237. And that, you could argue, kind of dilutes the significance of that very first pattern.
So with these really compelling patterns on one side, and some pretty serious critiques on the other, where does that leave us? What should we really take away from this whole search for hidden codes?
Maybe the value here isn't necessarily about proving a divine code beyond a shadow of a doubt. Maybe instead the real gift of munasabah is that it encourages a whole new way of reading. It's a lens that helps you seek out the unity and the coherence, to see the text as this deeply interconnected, meaningful whole, kind of like that grand mosaic we started with.
And this leaves us with one final big question to think about. Whether you believe it's a divine design or just a trick of the human mind, you have to admit the search itself is pretty remarkable. So that begs the question, is the real miracle the hidden code itself, or is it the faith that inspires such a deep and profound search for meaning in the first place?